if things are working, we should be here.
Yay.
Where's that piece of glass? We can go and knock on that glass and find out if we're. Are we live?
You're supposed to knock on wood, John. Knock on wood.
Oh, well, it would, but that hurts my head whenever or it hurts my hand whenever I hit my head with it. So you don't get that.
I think you're doing it wrong.
Oh, man. So, hey, good evening. We are finally here, finally live, finally coming to you from the great white almost north. Because, summer was over. We had July, and now it's over.
I don't want to talk about it. You know what? The leaves are changing.
We got to talk about today's weather. How hot? You guys were like close to 90 today up there.
It was warm. Today was so busy. I didn't really get the chance to leave my desk.
Oh, goodness.
I had a couple errands and a couple meetings, but my time outside was far too minimal. So it's just kind of that time when Minnesota's very it can't make up its mind. There's frost on your windows in the morning, and it gets to 90 in the afternoon. But nonetheless, like I said, the leaves are changing colors and they're falling down, and that's a sign of bad things to come. I know some people are really excited about snow, and I'm not one of those people. So good for you if you like snow. I don't.
You just keep your snow to yourself, man. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I see quite a few in the chat room this evening. We're running a little bit late. We had some issues with a Wirecast as one of the main programs we use. Typically, you start it, it goes. For 2-3 years, you start it, it goes. Tonight, it just kept bouncing. So we think it was that it was trying to hit the Wirecast server to check the code. I mean, that's about the only thing I can come up with. We have two machines.
Just another theory, this is just another, but since we're going to talk about the FCC and the 600 megahertz thing tonight, maybe they hacked us.
They hacked us. I like that story much better.
Could have been the Russians.
It just happened. We were hacked. We almost died. We could make a YouTube video out of this. It would be awesome. Oh, man.
Yeah, if you see ninjas sneak in behind me, let me know, would you?
Or some guys come, walking in with the big coats and guns, and they're like, you got to come with us. No. Let's see. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about microphones, and specifically we're going to be giving you guys an update on the whole 600 megahertz frequency debate issue situation. There's a lot going on with that. A lot of people are stressed out. I've seen actually some manufacturers making commercials or little spots. Did you see the one that was being shared today, Ben?
No, I didn't.
One of the manufacturers basically, they're like, we've gotten so many of them sent in, and I'm paraphrasing. So many of them sent in, just send us a video of you destroying your microphone system. And they have people in the background with hammers and throw it into a cement mixer. And
yeah, these things are just going in the garbage. It's unfortunate, but that's what's happening. These systems that are getting traded in, obviously the manufacturers don't want them back. It's not practical to reband a DJ level microphone, and that came up. There's a lot of great discussion earlier today. People were asking about, well, can't we just reband them? And if you have something like a BTR1 or even a BTR 800, a wireless intercom system, that's probably worth it because you're spending $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 for a system. So if you spend $1,000 to reband it, you're money ahead. But you wouldn't spend $1,000 to reband a $500 microphone. That's just silly, And it's unfortunate that they can't be rebanded. But these are small, inexpensive printed circuit boards, and we're talking cheap $500 systems, for the most part. So yeah, they're going in the garbage can, unfortunately.
Now with some of those, it's possible. Get a drink of water. Some of them now on my specific Shure units that I have, I can take the element off, and I'm not using the head of the microphone. I can take that off because it could be used on a different microphone. Mm-hmm. So there is some things that could be salvaged on those.
Well, absolutely, yeah. If you've got a Telefunken capsule on your microphone, or even if you have a Beta 87 or something that you have an expensive capsule, you could buy a cheaper capsule on a transmitter and then just swap that capsule out, so you could salvage that. The whole thing. I mean, let's be honest. I know I sell microphones, but the manufacturers, this has stressed them out for a couple of years. It's really stressed us out. And some people say, well, you must be happy because you're selling all these microphones. Not really, because I got to replace a bunch of my own stuff too. And it's, it's a crappy deal all around. But, we were basically guests. We just kind of set up camp in this open space, and it wasn't really ours to do that in. And now somebody has bought that space, and, it's just sort of like, think about it like camping on a vacant lot. And now somebody's building a house and you got to go,
We've been evicted.
So, none of us like it. And excuse me, let's be clear. I mean, this camp of vagrants that we are is actually a really big camp. It's not just DJs. It's every house of worship, churches. It's actually even broadcasters and their wireless microphones. It's the NFL. It's college football teams. It's Broadway. It's every touring band, not just with microphones, but also their in-ear monitors. We're a very small piece of a very big group of people, but while that's a very big group of people, we have to put this kind of in context. Uh, Set against the $8 billion that T-Mobile alone paid for the spectrum, and they're not the only one that bought it. We'll take a look at kind of some things of who got what here in a minute. But set against that kind of money, I mean, we're nothing. We're nobody. We're less than nobody. Even inclusive of the NFL and all the churches and Broadway and tour, we just don't rate on the economic scale. So we don't have any claim to the land anyway, and out we go. So as not to get rolling too much, but somebody made a good point, and it's been brought up before when we got kicked out of 700 megahertz. They said, why don't the wireless mic manufacturers just buy this spectrum? Simple, because you're not going to pay $10,000 for your wireless mic, and that's what it would take. I mean, we are hundreds of thousands of users up against hundreds of millions of cell phone users.
Sure.
Simple. I mean, we are our own enemy in this. We're part of the problem. Because that's where the spectrum is going.
So now there have been issues when I have used my microphones in different locations where I have picked up TV antennas or I picked up weird anomalies over the systems. Now that type of interference is of course somewhat regional. I'm going to call it, for lack of a better way to describe it. The difference between that interference and what would come with the 600 megahertz interference is basically it's like going to be completely blanking out the microphones and there would be no way to function. Am I following that correctly?
No, not really. Actually, that's a really good point, John, that you brought up. While it's less regional, TV is very regional. You have channel 11 here and channel 35 here, and those are the TV channels you tune in. And that is the spectrum we live in. We live in the same spectrum that's occupied by TV stations. So whereas different markets have different television stations operating at different frequencies over the air, and by the way, remind me to circle back on this because this is a really compelling reason why I don't think we're going to see 500 go away anytime soon. We'll just make a note that we need to come back to that because that's a question people have had is when does 500 go away? Well, I don't know, but I want to come back and tell you why I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. So while TV is very regional, this channel or that channel, and here's the space between, and so one mic won't work in this region, but it would work in this region. Mm-hmm. The cellular rollout is somewhat the same, except that we're basically being kicked out of all of the bandwidth. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, we're basically saying, look, anything above 608, it's not yours anymore. There is a guard band between 614 and 617. We could kind of sneak some stuff in, and there's some things up and down the. Well, you know what? Let's. This is a good time for pictures.
Pictures. We pictures.
Let's just take a look real quick. Let me make sure I get the right one up here.
Yes.
And let's do this.
And then the Death Star plans. Can you please put those up too, please?
No. I cannot.
You know how many Bothans?
All right.
Getting us those plans.
We're almost there.
We thought we were going to see Death Star plans.
No.
Now, how are we ever going to know how to blow up a Death Star?
All right, there you don't go.
Hey, there we go. There's South Dakota.
That's the one I wanted to show you. There we go. Got a little ahead of myself. Clicked too much. So what you see here, and you can see my mouse moving along, right?
Yes, if you go slower.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So up here we see where it says old plan. We see UHF channel. These are TV channels, okay? And so, if we talk about, like I mentioned, TV 35 earlier, there's your TV 35 right there. Mm-hmm. Oh, God darn it. We're getting ahead of ourselves again. And here we can see the actual physical frequency. Here we can see the guard bands I was referring to between the downlink and the uplink. And of course, now we're into 700 up here, and that's old news. That's gone. So, what we can see is that there are these blocks, right? Mm-hmm. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Yeah. And that corresponds to the new cellular blocks. And I just for the sake of fun, And I happen to have the list, the FIPS level data that the FCC sent out to all the broadcast auxiliary services. I have that database, and of course, it's very essential for me as we coordinate tours and college football games and that sort of thing. So we're keeping a very close eye on this nationwide. And on that note, I want to say there's an old saying that if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I'm very happy to report that I'm not the smartest guy in the room when I get around some of my friends who really get into this. My friend Jason Eskew, who we've done 6 college football national championships together. He's a brilliant RF manager. And also, we got a shout of thanks out here to Anthony Feedy, who's prepared some amazing maps that you got a sneak peek of, and we're going to actually look at here in a minute. These are people who are even more geeked out about this than me. So looking at that FIPS level data that was sent out to the BAS, I found, just for the sake of fun, golly, I'm sorry about this cough. Beaver, Oklahoma, only has blocks B, C, and D going to T-Mobile. So that's 622 to 637 and 668 to 683. Whereas, by contrast, Lemhi, Idaho, has A, B, C, D, and E. So there is a lot more bandwidth being used there. So while eventually by July 2020, we have to vacate the space completely, there is still, a lot of room in these areas to work around these broadcasters or these cellular, cellular towers.
Okay.
And it's also of note that as we look at this map, we see the uplink and the downlink. Well, even if the towers are on and broadcasting the downlink, there aren't any 600 megahertz handsets yet. So you're not going to have anything happening on the uplink just yet. That's going to take some time to roll out. Some of those are expected to land here in the fourth quarter. There's a few new models have been announced that will take advantage of this. I think the rollout is going to be somewhat gradual. However, we should note that the uncarrier, that is T-Mobile, is going to do things a little differently than AT&T and Verizon did. This is a big deal to T-Mobile. They spent $8 billion on it, and it's a big move against these other two carriers. So as the aforementioned Jason mentioned, we expect them to roll out like a freight train. They're not going to take their time on this deal. In fact, they've said as much in their newsroom. They've already told, they kind of put everybody on notice that they're going to move as fast as they can. However, they have to clear broadcast out before they can. So they have to get these TV stations to move, and then they can light up their stuff. And then eventually handsets will hit the market. So, excuse me. I've seen somebody post online recently that the 600 megahertz thing was already causing them problems and cellular is already interfering with them. Nope. Sorry, that's not true. Unless you're in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which this person was not, there are no 600 megahertz towers on right now. So whatever it was interfering with you. It wasn't cellular. And I typically find that most wireless issues are self-inflicted. So we have more to fear from ourselves right now than we do from T-Mobile. And that's going to be the case even afterwards, I think. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. And I've got some maps. I want to pause a minute to see if we've got questions so far before we jump into the maps.
They're just following along. I've been watching.
Okay.
Watching
well,
everything.
Let's jump into the map here. So what we see here, this is the A block of 600 megahertz. And pink is T-Mobile, or magenta, however you prefer.
Sure.
So we can see that this is what T-Mobile owns. Now, again, remind you, it's going to take some time, and T-Mobile has announced a plan to roll this out over the next 4 years. It doesn't happen tomorrow nationwide. I do have a list of locations, and I'll show that map last. I do have a list of locations that they have announced they intend to occupy as of November 1st. But those are places largely without broadcast that has to move. And then again, the rollout would be a little bit more measured after that. In other words, it's not time to panic, but it's certainly time to prepare. We shouldn't wait until we get run over. We should take advantage of the rebates and the specials that the manufacturers are offering right now and get ourselves prepared, but we shouldn't panic. Now, by contrast here, this is the B block. And I mentioned, that in Beaver and in Lemhi and Modoc and several, I looked at hundreds of counties across the United States. B, C, and D pretty much flows throughout the entire T-Mobile plan. So, and here you can see how much B block they have purchased nationwide. It's a ton. They are by far the big user of 600 megahertz.
Now, in these other areas that are, like Oregon, Washington, on the West Coast there's a different carrier than own those? Is that what that kind of a...
That's correct.
Greenish?
That's correct. And I don't remember every color, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just...
These came from, Anthony Feedy of Spectrum Omega, and I'm just so impressed with what he's done. Just what a great resource. It wasn't at all intended for us. He didn't do the work for us. But what a great resource. Again, we're kind of the, pardon the expression, but we're the bastard children.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even the NFL and everybody else, we're kind of the Me Too's, we're small fish in the big pond here.
Yeah, for sure.
But so it's nice when there's these resources out there. I remember that teal is AT&T. So here you can see the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, near where, probably inclusive of where you live, John. T-Mobile does not have the E block. AT&T does. But if we go back up here to the B block, T-Mobile has it all. Anyway, just for the sake of fun, excuse me, this is, remember 700 megahertz? Remember when we used to have that, the good old days?
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago? That was a good days.
Music was music and the kids danced and they liked it.
Yeah, they sure did. Here you could see what happened to our 700 megahertz. Oh, gosh darn it. Sorry. And so here you can see that 700 megahertz, AT&T bought a ton of that. And so, like I said, T-Mobile's really making a grab here at the 5G rollout, whereas Verizon and AT&T have a ton of spectrum. And as these new generations roll out, they'll be able to reuse a lot of their existing bandwidth, which is future argument towards why I don't think 500 is in any imminent danger of going away. So anyway, there's that. Let's give the nice folks something else to look at here for a minute.
Why? You and I've been we've been in the corner. I put us up there.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
well, I do have some more pictures, but I'm going to let you guide the process here for a minute. If you've got any questions or direction you want to take us.
I think we've been answering most of the, some people were talking about the different frequencies. If they have a 500 mic and a 500 megahertz, are they safe?
Anything below 608, you're fine. 470 to 608, you're fine. We still have a ton of space, 138 megahertz. It's not as much as we used to have. Of course not, but that's just not the world we live in anymore. And you're still going to be able to use your microphones. I don't think the FCC, they're aware of us, even though we're as I said, the bastard children. The FCC is aware that churches and tours and Broadway and broadcast and the NFL and everybody else uses wireless equipment, in-ear monitors, IFBs, not just wireless microphones. There's a lot of wireless stuff out there,
right.
Headsets, coaches' headsets. The FCC is not trying to ruin our day. It feels like it, but they're trying to balance this. Believe it or not, they're trying not to ruin our day. And I think there's always going to be a home for wireless microphones because they're so ubiquitous and they're such a big part of American life that I think, well, let's just dive into it unless you got another question.
Well,
here.
And then they're talking about the 2.4 megahertz. Yes.
Gigahertz.
Gigahertz.
Yeah, 2.4
gigahertz.
gigahertz.
2.4 gigahertz. If that's something that a person should be looking into that frequency range.
Nope, I don't think so. You're still leaving a bigger pond for a smaller one. 2.4 is still smaller than what we have. So I don't see how that's a solution. If you're going from one crowded space to a more crowded space, how does that help you? Two, it's an unlicensed band. So everything in the world can operate in 2.4. Wireless uplights, Bluetooth, baby monitors. It's emitted from microwave ovens. I know some people who use 2.4 gigahertz mics and they do so without issue, but I know a lot of people who have issues, a lot. In fact, I remember the first national championship, I've worked several college football national championship games, and I remember the very first one that they used pylon cam. Have you seen that yet?
I don't think so.
They're cameras they put in the pylons in the end zone.
Okay.
And I remember, walking around the stadium 2 days before the game, and they were talking about this pylon cam thing. It wasn't going to be part of the broadcast. They were just going to test it out. And so they have these little cameras in all the pylons, and you could think what a great angle that gives you for an end zone catch or a toe line grab or whatever, toe on the line kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I said, well, what frequency are they using? And they said, oh, it's 2.4. And I said, you got 8 2.4 gigahertz cameras in each end zone. I said, it's not going to work. Oh, no, it's going to work. It didn't work.
Yeah.
They revamped it, and pylon cam, came out the next year, and everybody got to see it. But they had tons of problems, and as we try to roll out Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi is already moving to 5.8 because 2.4 is too crowded. So, you do you, as they say, but I would not recommend going to 2.4 for anything that requires live audio. You just don't have a checksum. Once that packet's dropped, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not a fan of 2.4 for anything live audio.
Yeah, they're asking about some companies that are producing a pro version of a 2.4.
Still 2.4.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, without naming any names, there is an engineer who works for one of these wireless manufacturers that makes a pro 2.4, and his direct quote to me, now I'm paraphrasing his direct quote. I just said it was a direct quote, but this is how I remember it. Basically, he said 2.4 is still a consumer solution. Mm-hmm. UHF is still a pro solution. So you can call it pro. You can put lipstick on a pig. But 2.4, simply put, supports a very limited number of wireless to begin with. And it is inherently full of problems already. So again, I know a lot of people use it, and DJs typically use very few channels of wireless. Typically, you've got less than 4 wireless, so you're probably fine. But, for a professional application where we need to deploy 30, 40, 50 channels of wireless, we can't do it in 2.4 to begin with, even in ideal conditions. And there's no place in the world that's ideal with 2.4. So my opinion, I wouldn't go to 2.4. But if you're there and it's working, good for you.
In some areas it might work. DJ Bar brought up has a question to a point, or he mentions that Bar works in New York City, obviously a very populated area, lots of signals and transmissions going on. What would you recommend? This is, if there's a worst case scenario, that's got to be it.
Nope, Dallas is worse.
Really?
And so I was surprised to find that out myself. But when I did the national championship game in Dallas, I had over 200 channels of wireless working. Now, granted, we still had 600. And I suspect life's going to get a little harder, but I think that your best solutions are still between 470 and 608, even in New York City, because, we're competing for a limited amount of bandwidth everywhere we go. Whether you go to, from 470 to 608, or you go into the 900 megahertz ISM band, or you go into 2.4, everywhere you go, we're competing for a limited amount of bandwidth. Unfortunately, there's no free lunch. You may find good success with 2.4, but I bet you we could find a couple people in the chat room right now that have had problems with 2.4 in New York. You could certainly find problems with 900, and you could have success with 900. I don't have a straightforward answer. I'll just tell you that I would still feel comfortable. And I've toured with bands, and we've toured through New York. We've done shows in New York. I would feel comfortable, even when this is all said and done, taking a wireless microphone between 470 and 608 and using it in New York. I would feel comfortable I could make that work. But
it needs to be something that's semi-adjustable frequency-wise to make sure you can find an open or clear channel?
Oh, that's a must, no doubt. The other thing I see, Ensure has their digital QLXD operating in VHF. And that surprises some people too. They say, well, I didn't know UHF and VHF could be digital. Yes, let's be clear. The type of signal, analog or digital, has nothing to do with the wavelength it's propagated on, right? So QLXD is a digital mic that operates on VHF, and I think we're going to see more of that. There's wireless intercom systems now that are putting their uplink in UHF and their downlink in VHF, and they're starting to divide those things. But the key there, as you said, is having the ability to be frequency agile, the ability to change channels. If you have a single channel mic, if you land on something or somebody lands on you, you have nowhere to go and you're out of luck. The good news is a lot of these wirelesses are now giving us much more room to move. In fact, Radiocom's wireless comm tunes all the way from 470 to 698. Now, granted, we can't use 608 to 698 anymore, but the fact is they allow us to tune the whole spectrum. Sennheiser's EW Evolution G3 allows you to tune 42 megahertz of bandwidth, which is a big chunk. Compared to like Shure SLX, I think is 25 megahertz. EVRE2 is 28 megahertz. I'm just this off the top of my head, so I might be wrong, but we're in the neighborhood. And by comparison, Audix has their 62 series or 61 and 62 series, which is 64 megahertz of bandwidth. So you got a ton of room to roam around. You got all kinds of room to roam around. The chances are you're going to find open spaces really, 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 really good. And Shure's QLXD and ULXD also 64 megahertz of bandwidth. So frequency agile, a must. Something between 470 and 608, I feel good. Where between 470 and 608? Well, that's where you call me. We look at your area. We look at not just current, but also pending FCC applications. I look at this on a topographical map. I think we talked about this on a recent show. And we look at, attenuation from terrain. And then I say, this one's going to work for you. And I don't think I've let anybody down yet.
That was a question actually Jared just was asking here. If there is a website or something that a person can use to check frequencies and such, and you obviously have that source where you can go and check and say yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not there are frequency finders you can go to on the wireless mic manufacturers. I find them to be limited at best. They'll get you in the neighborhood. Again, with the rapid changes and all the things that are at play here, rather than a website, you got a friend, you got a guy, just contact me. I'll do it for you for free if you're buying the mic from me, just as a courtesy. And I'll be happy to tell you where I get my information too, because you have to know what to do with the information,
So all this talk about frequency agile and interference and such in Dallas or New York and are two examples. You did that microphone test where you basically told your guy to head down the road and don't stop until I can't hear you anymore. That
was a good time.
When he hit Park Rapids, he stopped.
Yeah. I was afraid he was going to get over the hill and not be able to hear me anymore,
It was a long, long way. But
950 feet.
950 feet. Now, if you were in a large area, say if you were in Dallas and you were on a street that was 975 feet long, would you be able to get that same distance with that microphone in Dallas with all the additional frequencies out or different transmitters out there going? Or do you think, would that have been a shorter distance in a more a busier area?
I think we probably could. I think it wouldn't, we didn't do anything except turn the mic on for this test.
Yeah, you had it on the table.
We didn't have to look. But, regularly I have, microphone fins in a press box at a stadium. And now we didn't use a fin for this test. Okay. So that's one thing. And in a pro application, whether I can get away with it or not, I don't chance it. I always use a fin or, a better antenna, for an IEM, I use a helical, that sort of thing. We have some shows on antennas, but it's probably 400 feet from a press box to a sideline, easy, and we do this with regularity for broadcast where failure is not really an option. So yeah, I would imagine, again, it depends on the overall RF noise floor and what's around you, but yeah, I bet I could get 950 feet in Dallas, It'd be fun to try, New York, I don't know. That's you go 950 feet. That's I'd never see him again, But,
well, that would be.
Plus, this is Tony. Tony's a friend of mine, and Tony and I have a mutual love of food. So there's a lot of great places to eat in New York. My friend Ryan and I, we just pretty much did a walking eating tour of New York. We just walked until we found something to eat, and then we walked some more and found something else to eat. And it's a wonder we ever got out of there.
Funny.
You know what else is funny? I'm sorry, it's a total ADHD moment, but my wife got a hankering that she had to. I just used the word hankering. So
you did. Wow.
Make a note of that. That we had to clean the basement this weekend. So she and her sister went to clean in the basement, and she found these. It's almost when you clean your basement, it's like an archaeological dig. And she found these small silver circle things that probably only a select group of our viewers know what they are, because they'd been mothballed a long time ago. And as I was walking into my den here to film the show, right on top of the stack, I am not making this up, just by random chance, right on top of the stack was this one.
REM.
And of course, the first track 1, what's the frequency, Kenneth?
Yeah,
And I thought, I have to mention that on the show. That's just too good.
Yeah.
I'm just amused by little things. So
let's see. Another question. When you set up your wireless system, do you do a scan to find a clear channel before and after the guests arrive, or only before? Which one's the best way to do it? Can a scan when the room is empty?
If those are my choices, I'd say before and after, but if you're going to do it after, there's probably no point to do on before, unless you just want to do it for, get a clear scan and check your sound levels and that sort of thing. If you're not having issues, there's no need to scan again.
That was that's what I'm wondering is would the people coming into the room cause issues where you might have to rescan? But
guests are more likely causing attenuation of the signal than they are creating new signals in the room. Guests aren't bringing in a lot of new frequencies that are going to interfere with your 470 to 608 mics. Again, that will change when those 600 megahertz handsets come out. Then if you're operating in 600 megahertz, guests could be interfering. But right now, it's probably not guests interfering with you, unless you're using a 2.4 gigahertz mic. And then if they're connected to the Wi-Fi and they have the Bluetooth on, then they are. So rewind and listen to my previous reasons why you shouldn't use 2.4. Bottom line, we're lucky that we have these wireless systems that have the scan feature. So yeah, if you have a problem, regardless of what the cause, rescan and it should go away. Guests shouldn't be creating interference. They just probably creating attenuation, which means knocking down the level of your signal. Radio waves don't go through water very well. This is why our Navy submarines tow wireless antennas that are like 5 miles long. They're very, very, very long bandwidth to try to penetrate that water. And people don't really like it when I say this, but we are walking bags of water. I mean, and I'm drinking water all night here, right? But we're just giant walking bags of water. And so you put a bunch of us between antennas, and that's a problem. No place do I deal with this more than football sidelines, where I have 300-pound bags of water standing between my coach's headset radio antennas and but again, we have engineered solutions for that.
Back to the wedding, when Jared was asking about it, I have had instances where I did a scan early, found clear channels, and then once the crowd was there, I was having issues. But it was because of a videographer or photographer who is now recording and bringing in another set of microphones that were on the same frequencies. So
my headache with college football is always local press. The national championships, even though we have so many frequencies in use, usually go smooth because we're coordinating that well in advance. I'm talking to ESPN and Westwood One and, Dial Global and all those people. And we're coordinating all of that stuff in advance, but it's always the local guy that got a press pass somehow that comes in and, he's got a camera mic. And so I'm like an uncaged tiger, on the sidelines, on game day, seeking out any potential threat to my carefully calculated RF.
I could just imagine you running up and giving the local reporter get the tram mic up.
I actually came to strong words with one guy, and I offered to give him a frequency that he could use, but I told him he couldn't stay where he was, and he told me that wasn't going to happen. And I basically said, listen, you're either going to turn off your radio or operate on a frequency that I give you, or you're going to leave. I'm going to have your press pass revoked and I'll have you ejected from the stadium. And he said, well, you can't do that. You don't have that authority. And I said, I'll make you a deal. All right. I said, if you're a betting man, I'll make you a deal. Right down the hall, 6 doors down the press suite is the NCAA's work office. I said, let's go down there and find out. But here's the deal. If they say, yes, I do have that authority, you're done. Then you don't get to change your mind. I said, or you can just change your frequency now and we don't have to find out if I have that authority or not. I said, it's up to you. You feel lucky? and he decided to go for a frequency. So, I don't know. I don't know if I had the authority or not, but I'm pretty sure when you're the RF coordinator and your job is to make sure everything works and one guy doesn't want to play ball, I think his press pass was probably in danger. So anyway, we got along fine after that. His microphone worked great and he was happy and I was happy because everything else worked great.
Yeah, so. When you can set it up properly. Ian was wondering about a signal jammer in the rack.
They're illegal, so don't do that.
That's why they said
it is illegal to willfully interfere with somebody else's radio, particularly if they're a licensed user.
That's why you just give the person a wedgie, and those are legal.
I'm not sure if they are. We shouldn't go on record saying wedgies are legal.
That's not legal either. Oh,
and as a geek myself, I'm not a big fan of wedgies.
Yeah. Sorry.
But I got to walk that weird line, being a geek, but also being a 3-year letter winner in wrestling. So I didn't get a lot of wedgies either, but neither did my geek friends. I'll just put that out there.
Just trying to see if there's anything.
I got some more pictures and maps, by the way. So,
Paul, I had almost the exact same thing. We were doing a ceremony. My microphones were sounding fabulous. I was so excited and everything was great. Then videographers came in, wired up the groom, same frequency, but they turned him on they ran up there and turned him on just before the officiant said, ladies and gentlemen, please stand. Mike was...
here's the deal. And I see more of this coming. We coordinate big events. And by coordinate, I mean, we distribute frequencies to everybody who's using them. Again, if it's a football game, it's the teams, it's the press, it's the stadium incumbent, it's security radios, it's everything. If it's a concert, I'm coordinating my own frequencies, wireless mics and IEMs and that sort of thing. I see more of this coming, even small level coordination. Just, us getting together, you and the videographer, hopefully, maybe this is just a pipe dream, but, talking before the event, maybe even before we all show up and saying, okay, do you have wireless equipment? Yes. What's a tune? Well, this range. You know what? Tell you what, here, you do this and I'll do this and the event's going to go fine. Take a playbook out of those of us who do it for the pros, and everybody's stuff's going to work and the client doesn't suffer. And I know you're not going to get every videographer to play ball. And, again, even in a national championship, I ran into a guy who didn't want to change his frequency and I had to threaten him with eviction. So I get it, but hopefully my dream, we could get everybody to play along.
He has a dream.
Well, I was certainly trying not to, borrow from the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. there. I think his dream and mine are probably on a different level, but
we all have it.
But my dream is my dream nonetheless. So,
Okay. I think we've covered our questions. We're getting close to 9:00. Where are we at on the presentation?
Let's do some pictures then.
Yay, pictures.
So first and foremost, I know a lot of you are saying, well, I spent $500 on this microphone, or I spent $1,000 on this microphone. And dude, I totally get it. I am 100% with you. I'm replacing a bunch of my own stuff and I don't like it. So I get it. I feel you. I'm with you. But listen, remember, we're a part of a much bigger pool of people who are all in the same garbage. This is a coach's sideline intercom system right here. And they're in the same boat as you. And that's $80,000. So trust me, nobody's digging this except T-Mobile. They're having a great time, but you're in good company. There's a lot of people from the NFL down who are all suffering with you. So, including me, even those of us who sell mics are really, believe it or not, we're not really happy about this.
So now in that particular system that we're looking at right there, Ben, are they going to do any reprogramming of those, or is that basically just a lot of pretty garbage?
Now it's a lot of pretty garbage, because unfortunately this particular system is end of life. And so they will not be able to reband them. They're not going to be offering rebanding. Some other ones will. And so it depends, but this system's almost 10 years old. And I know it sounds ridiculous to say that, but it's almost 10 years old. It's time to replace it anyway.
Wow.
Nobody likes to hear that, but just a little pragmatism here. I have mics that are well past 5 years old. I'm as guilty as everybody else, but the fact is on your taxes, you depreciate things over 5 years. After 5 years, it's worth zero as far as depreciation goes. So, yeah, honestly, I really find it heartbreaking that this perfectly good system who works amazing has to be put to pasture in the next year or two. Again, we're watching this rollout, which we'll look at here. That's my very next picture. Uh, to the tune of sending $80,000 to the happy hereafter. But you know, it has lived its useful life anyway, as far as that goes. So, but it is sad, and it is very pretty, and it's a great system, and I've loved working with these systems. And I hope I love working with the next generation stuff as much as I loved working with this system. So this, by the way, you're looking at a system that this is what the NFL uses. So, yeah. All right, moving on. Last picture. Maybe. Hey, there it is. Oh, there it went. Now it's back. This is the long-awaited map of what T-Mobile has indicated to us that they will turn on around or on or by November 1st of this year. These counties. This is their plan to turn these on by November 1st. The good news is it doesn't cover a lot of populated areas. A reason for that is because the populated areas have TV stations which they would have to move, and they're not ready to do that yet. So the bad news is if you happen to be in some of these counties, expect to see T-Mobile turning on towers around November 1st. As the year rolls on, there'll be some 600 megahertz handsets out there, and you may start to have problems. And I say may start to have problems. Again, if you're in these areas, I would move. I would get a new system. I would take advantage of the rebates and the specials. With the American Disc Jockey Association has a killer deal through NLFX, a negotiated deal with Audix microphones. Sure, Sennheiser and Audio Technica all have rebates. But just because you're in these areas doesn't mean you're immediately going to have problems either. The last thing that I want to just close with here, I know we're getting close on time and looking at the clock, is fears about 500. So I don't have a crystal ball, or I would have seen 600 coming 10 years ago. Nobody did. Not even the wireless mic manufacturers. And frankly, it's because this is done by the government and they didn't know what they were going to do. I mean, let's be realistic. It's the government, So hopefully they're not still watching the show. Anyway, let's remember that when they set about to do this, they wanted to take as much as 136 megahertz of bandwidth. They wanted to take down into the 500. And they just didn't get the money they wanted. And so they had to keep scaling it back and scaling it back and scaling it back. And they ended up only taking 84 megahertz. And they've opened up some other higher frequencies and things. I think this really settles things for quite a while. I don't think there's, it's economics 101, supply and demand. There is just not the demand to take 500 away now. The other thing is, in order to take 500 away, they would have to pretty much force all the TV stations off the air or into somewhere else. And if they force them into somewhere else, it has to be somewhere that your traditional TV sets can tune to. They can't ask every American to buy a new TV to tune in this over-the-air TV. And so as long as over-the-air TV remains a priority, and it is, still a very important way for, public service, mass evacuation, civil defense, that sort of thing, it's a big deal. So I think that to say that 500 is going away anytime soon is probably very, very unlikely. I can't foresee the political climate that would cause that to happen. Moving people out of 700 and 600 is much easier. Moving people out of 500, I think, is much harder.
Interesting.
Yeah, and frankly, I don't think the money is there. I don't think the money is there to support that. I think we're starting to plateau. The smartphone, the iPhone turned 10, right? We all saw that today, big deal. It's all starting to plateau. Our data consumption is greater. We're consuming data faster, but this sort of gives everybody the bandwidth that they need, and they can continue to roll out their 5G and eventually maybe their 6G and whatever comes next. I'm not saying 500 is going to be around forever. That would be crazy. I just don't know that. But if 500 is gone in the next decade, I'll be stunned and very sad, because I have a lot of 500 megahertz stuff. I started replacing my 600 megahertz stuff a couple of years ago. And honestly, some of it I didn't start replacing a couple of years ago because I waited, because I knew there'd be rebates. And so now you're seeing that. So waiting didn't necessarily hurt you because there's rebates. So,
which is a good thing. I mean, it's not a ton of money, but it is a nice little bump to help cover the cost.
Sure, it's better than nothing. I mean, the wireless mic manufacturers could, let's be honest. The reason they're offering rebates is they know people need mics and they're hoping you buy theirs. Yeah. It's not benevolent. It's nice of them, but they don't have to do it. They're doing it because they're hoping you'll buy their mic and not the competitors. That's the reason. So I say that with apologies to all my friends who make wireless mics, but
and we had this discussion, I think, with off camera 2 or 3 years ago with at least 3 years ago with Mike Dussault talking wireless, and at that time there was so much up in the air that he had made this statement that it's tough for mic manufacturers to be creating and making microphones when you just don't know where things are going to land here in 2 or 3 years. And here we are 2 or 3 years later, and now we're seeing why.
I said this 2 years ago. I think you're right. Where I said, I think this will be the greatest time of innovation for wireless microphones in the history of our industry, because now the dust is settled. Now we know what's happening, now through 2020. And necessity is the mother of invention. And so I think we're going to see a lot more, creativity and invention and maybe the greatest era of wireless, because we've been forced out of this massive prairie we had to wander around in. Our systems have to get a little better and smarter. So I think it's going to be very exciting. Boy, I wish I could get rid of this cough. If any viewers have any suggestions, I'd be open to those. But I don't think it's the dark ages for wireless mics. I think just the opposite. We have plenty of room still. We have 470 to 608, and I think manufacturers, now that they can relax a little and execute a plan for mics that can be around a while, I think you're going to see that rolling out pretty quick. And to that point, John, you and I both know, I know a lot of wireless mic engineers. They're my people. We're nerds. We hang together, right? These last couple of years were tough on them. You might think it was a great jubilee for wireless mic manufacturers because they're going to sell a bunch of mics. No, I don't think so. These people were really stressed out. They might be happy now because they're making sales, but the last 2 years were very, very hard on them. So I don't know that a lot of people are super happy about this. We really, really liked 600. It was nice to be there. But I think we're going to get really used to life in 500, and life will go on, and we'll still have events. We'll still have tours. We'll still have football games. We'll still have weddings. Life is going to be good.
One last question here from the crowd. You want to shut off the full screen share?
No.
They've already reacted to the map. The last question we had was, who is Emperor Snoke?
I think we're all going to find out here before too long. I don't know. I really don't.
Don't have a theory.
I have some speculations. There's a lot of them out there that it could be Palpatine. It could be Darth Sidious. I don't know. I'm hoping it's somebody new, to be honest with you. I'm tired of, it's nice to see some of the old characters reborn. Obviously, I never get tired of Darth Vader, but I think it's time to see, see some expansion in the Star Wars universe.
That is how we will leave our show for tonight.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for that.
Exactly. We were talking to the kids the other day. It's like, yes, we're going to be going this time right away.
I like that we have new characters in Finn and Rey, and I like that there's new life. Obviously, as we saw, really tragically, Carrie Fisher's death and Kenny Baker. Harrison Ford is not young. Peter Mayhew is not young at all. We won't have these people forever. And so we love them. They made us laugh and cry and cheer and, act like, idiots at Comic Cons for the last, 40 years. but I think if Star Wars is going to have life, it's going to be with new characters. So I love the old characters. I went to Star Wars in '77. Yeah, I'm really that old, viewers. I know you don't believe me, but I really am that old. But I'm ready for new characters too. I'm ready for that.
It was so cool back then.
Well, I was very young, to be fair, and I was scared to death of Darth Vader. I don't know, maybe that explains some complex that I have, but I don't know. I don't know. I think Darth Vader. I know we're out of time. I'll just say I think Darth Vader is a story of redemption. I think a story of love conquers all, and you can get all weepy on me and be think it's cliche, but I think that's the great story about a son's love and a father's love and redemption. So, plus, let's face it, he's a. Can I say badass? He's a badass. Can I say that? I can't say that. You can't say that. I didn't say that, yeah, so we didn't say it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back in just a few minutes. I put the link for our second show in the chat room here. Ben, thank you very much for the information, and we will catch you guys in just a few minutes.